Have you ever wondered why we, as a species, are so obsessed with creating images? From the doodles in your notebook to the masterpieces in the Louvre, this drive to make marks is deeply human. But where did it all begin? The answer lies not in museums, but deep within the earth, in ancient caves, where our ancestors left their first messages to the future. Long before the first word was ever written, tens of thousands of years before the invention of alphabets, humans were painting. We're talking about a time so distant, it's hard to even comprehend. These weren't just idle scribbles to pass the time. The cave paintings of Lascaux, Chauvet, and Altamira are a profound window into the minds of early humans. They represent one of the most significant cognitive leaps in our history. For the first time, our ancestors were taking the three-dimensional world they experienced and translating it into two-dimensional symbols. This is the very foundation of all art, writing, and visual communication that followed. So, why did they do it? For a long time, the common theory was that these paintings were just decoration, a way to spruce up the cave. But modern archaeology and cognitive science tell a much more compelling story. These paintings weren't just pretty pictures. They were tools. They were a technology of the mind. Imagine life as an early human. Your world is a constant cycle of survival. You need to remember where the best hunting grounds are, which plants are safe to eat, and the migration patterns of the animals you depend on. Your memory is your most critical survival tool. But human memory is fallible. It fades, it gets distorted. How do you preserve crucial information and pass it down through generations without a written language? You paint it. The powerful images of bison, horses, and mammoths that thunder across cave walls were likely more than just portraits of animals. They were a vital link between memory, survival, and symbolism. By painting a successful hunt, our ancestors could externalize that memory. They could revisit it, study it, and teach it to the younger members of their group. It was a way to say, this is the animal we hunt. This is how it moves. This is where we find it. It turned a fleeting moment into a permanent lesson. The act of painting wasn't just about recording the past. It was about preparing for the future. Think about the level of abstract thought required for this. You have to hold a complex idea in your mind, the memory of a hunt, the anatomy of an animal, the plan for a future encounter. Then, you need to translate that mental image into physical marks on a wall using primitive tools and pigments made from charcoal and ochre. This process required planning, foresight, and a sophisticated understanding of symbolism. The image of the bison wasn't just a bison. It represented the bison, along with all the knowledge and experience associated with it. This is the birth of symbolic thinking, the ability to let one thing stand for another, which is the bedrock of language, mathematics, and all complex human thought. The subjects of these paintings are also incredibly revealing. They are almost exclusively focused on large animals, the very creatures that were central to their survival. We see very few paintings of plants, landscapes, or even people except for occasional mysterious human-animal hybrid figures. This focus tells us what was on their minds: food, danger, and the powerful forces of nature they lived with every day. Some theories suggest the paintings were part of shamanistic rituals, attempts to connect with the spirit world to ensure a successful hunt. By painting the animal, perhaps they believed they could gain some power over it. A form of magical thinking to reduce the uncertainty of their dangerous lives. Another fascinating aspect is the placement of these paintings. They weren't in the well-lit, comfortable living areas of the caves. Instead, our ancestors ventured deep into the darkest, most inaccessible chambers to create their art. Reaching these spots often required crawling through tight passages and navigating treacherous drops, all by the flickering light of a torch. Why go to such trouble? This suggests the act of creating and viewing the art was a special, perhaps sacred, experience. The journey into the darkness was part of the ritual. The flickering firelight would have made the painted animals appear to move and breathe, creating an immersive, powerful, almost cinematic experience. It was the world's first art gallery and its first theater. These paintings also show us something profound about the human condition: the desire to leave a mark, to say, I was here. Among the herds of painted animals, we often find handprints. An early artist would place their hand on the cave wall and blow pigment around it, leaving a negative stencil. It has an incredibly personal and immediate connection to an individual who lived over 30,000 years ago. It's a signature, a declaration of existence that echoes through millennia. It shows that even in a world focused on immediate survival, our ancestors were thinking beyond the present moment. They were thinking about their legacy, about how they would be remembered. They were communicating not just with their own tribe, but with the future, with us. Before we could write down our laws, our histories, or our stories, we painted them. This wasn't a primitive first draft of writing. It was a fully formed, sophisticated system of communication in its own right. It was a way to organize society, transfer knowledge, and make sense of a complex and dangerous world. It was the moment we stopped just reacting to our environment and started actively shaping our own understanding of it. The act of painting was the act of becoming truly human, of using our minds not just to survive, but to create meaning, to share ideas, and to connect with each other across vast stretches of time. So the next time you see a piece of art, whether it's a child's drawing on a refrigerator or a modern masterpiece, remember its ancient origins. Remember the brave, intelligent, and creative ancestors who, in the deep, dark caves of a prehistoric world, first picked up a piece of charcoal and decided to tell a story. They gave us the gift of visual language, a gift that continues to shape our world and define who we are. It's a legacy written not in words, but in ochre and shadow, a testament to the enduring power of the human imagination. Have you ever wondered why our earliest ancestors, living in caves tens of thousands of years ago, chose to draw animals? Not just a few doodles, but vast, magnificent galleries of bison, horses, mammoths, and lions, covering the walls of deep, dark caverns. It asks a question that takes us to the very heart of what it means to be human. When you look at prehistoric cave art, one thing becomes immediately obvious. Animals dominate the scene. Human figures are rare, often just simple stick figures, while the animals are drawn with incredible detail, power, and realism. From the thundering herds in Lascaux, France, to the powerful bulls in Altamira, Spain, these weren't just decorations. They were central to the lives and minds of the people who created them. So, what was going on? Let's step into their world. For Paleolithic people, animals were everything. They were the source of food that kept them alive, the leather that kept them warm, and the bones that became their tools. But they were also a source of immense danger. A hunt was a life-or-death struggle. Facing a woolly mammoth or a cave bear was an act of incredible bravery. This complex relationship, a mix of dependence, respect, and deep-seated fear, is etched onto those stone walls. Think about the act of hunting. It wasn't just about killing for food. It was an intimate dance with the natural world. To be a successful hunter, you had to understand your prey completely. You had to know their habits, their movements, how they reacted to the changing seasons, where they found water, and how they behaved in a herd. This required a level of observation that we can barely imagine today. This is where the art comes in. Many scholars now believe that these paintings weren't just crude hunting magic, like a primitive wish list for a successful hunt. Instead, they were a form of deep ecological observation. They were a way to study, to understand, and to teach. Look at the details. The way a horse's head is turned, the specific posture of a deer, the muscular tension in a bison's shoulder. These artists knew their subjects intimately. They were the first naturalists, the first biologists. The caves acted as their textbooks, their encyclopedias carved in stone. By painting these animals, they were processing information, sharing knowledge with the next generation, and reinforcing their own understanding of the world they depended on. But it goes even deeper than that. These animals were not just walking meals. They were powerful symbols. In a world full of uncertainty, where survival was a daily struggle, these creatures represented forces of nature that were far greater than any single human. The strength of a bison, the speed of a horse, the stealth of a lion, these were qualities that humans admired and perhaps even sought to possess. It's possible that the art was part of shamanic rituals. Imagine a shaman, a spiritual leader, venturing into the deepest, most remote parts of a cave space that felt like a gateway to another world. In the flickering light of a tallow lamp, the animal figures on the walls would seem to move, to breathe, to come alive. In these sacred spaces, the shaman might have tried to connect with the spirits of these powerful animals, to draw on their strength, to ask for their help in the hunt, or to ensure the fertility of the herds. The animals on the walls became mediators between the human world and the spirit world. They were embodiments of power, resilience, and the very essence of survival. This symbolic power is crucial. When our ancestors painted a giant bull, they weren't just painting a bull. They were painting the concept of strength. When they drew a herd of horses running free, they were capturing the idea of speed and untamed energy. These weren't just pictures of animals. They were pictures of powerful ideas. They were a way for early humans to make sense of a world that was both beautiful and terrifying. The art was a tool for thinking, a way to grapple with the big questions of life, death, and their place in the cosmos. So, when we look at these ancient paintings, we're not just seeing animals. We're seeing a reflection of the human mind at the dawn of its consciousness. We're seeing a profound connection to the natural world built on survival, observation, and awe. We're witnessing our ancestors' attempt to capture the power of the world around them, and, in doing so, to understand their own power and place within it. The animals on the stone are a testament to our enduring need to create, to understand, and to connect with the forces that shape our lives. They are a timeless story of survival, power, and the dawn of human observation. Have you ever scribbled your name on a dusty window or left your handprint in wet cement? If you have, you're part of a tradition that goes back tens of thousands of years. It's a simple, powerful declaration. I was here. Today we're journeying deep into the past, into the caves of our earliest ancestors, to uncover how these simple marks gave birth to something revolutionary: human identity. Imagine standing in a dimly lit cave, the only sound the echo of dripping water. You raise your hand, place it flat against the cold, rough stone. Then, using a hollow reed, you spray a mixture of ochre and water around it. When you pull your hand away, a perfect silhouette remains. This isn't just a random shape. It's your hand. It's a piece of you forever imprinted on the rock. These hand stencils, found in caves from Indonesia to Spain, are some of the oldest art forms known to humanity. Some date back over 40,000 years. For a long time, archaeologists and historians debated what these hands meant. Were they part of a hunting ritual, a spiritual ceremony, or something else entirely? While those interpretations are possible, a more personal theory has gained ground. These handprints might just be the earliest signatures in human history. They were a way for an individual to say, "This is me, I existed." Think about it. In a world without writing, without photographs, how else could you leave a permanent record of yourself? This act was a profound step. It was a shift from a purely collective existence where the group was everything to the recognition of the self. But the story doesn't end with handprints. Alongside these personal marks, something else began to appear on cave walls: abstract symbols. Dots, lines, zigzags, and geometric shapes. These weren't direct representations of the world like a painting of a bison or a horse. They were codes. While the hand stencil said, "I am here," these symbols said something more complex. They might have represented concepts, ideas, or shared knowledge within the group. What's fascinating is how these two forms of expression, the personal and the symbolic, developed side by side. The handprint is raw, immediate, and individual. It belongs to one person. The abstract symbol, on the other hand, is communal. Its meaning must be shared and understood by the group to be effective. It's the foundation of collective memory and culture. You need an agreed-upon system for a series of lines to mean river, or for a specific dot pattern to signify a lunar cycle. This created a beautiful tension, a dance between the individual and the collective that has defined human society ever since. The hand stencil represents the birth of I, the recognition of a unique self with its own story and existence. The abstract symbol represents the strengthening of we, the shared culture, and knowledge that bind a community together. One isn't more important than the other. They are two sides of the same coin. Our identity is forged in this space between our personal experience and our shared culture. So, when we look at these ancient symbols, we're not just looking at primitive graffiti. We are witnessing the very moment our ancestors began to grapple with the question, who am I? They used the tools they had, their hands, crushed minerals, and the stone walls of their shelters, to explore this fundamental question. They were creating the first external hard drives of human consciousness, storing both individual identities and collective knowledge for future generations. These early artists were pioneers of the human spirit. They weren't just surviving, they were reflecting. They were developing a sense of self, a sense of time, and a sense of their place in the universe. The desire to leave a mark, to communicate beyond the immediate moment, is a deeply human impulse. It's the same impulse that drives us to write books, create art, build monuments, and even post our lives online. We all want to say, in our own way, I was here. The meaning of many of these symbols is likely lost to time forever. We can only speculate, But what isn't lost is the intent behind them. It's the intent to communicate, to remember, and to be remembered. The hand on the wall is a ghostly greeting from the distant past, a direct connection to an individual who lived, breathed, and felt, just as we do today. It reminds us that our search for identity is not a modern invention but an ancient quest. From the first handprint to the complex digital identities we manage today, the journey has been long and incredible. It all started in the dark with a hand against a wall and the simple, revolutionary idea of me. And in that simple act, the story of us truly began. Have you ever stood in front of a piece of ancient art and felt a sense of awe, a connection to a time long past? Now imagine that art isn't in a brightly lit museum but deep within the earth, in a dark, silent cave. This is the world of Paleolithic cave art, a world that's far more mysterious and profound than we often realize. For a long time, we thought these paintings were just simple decorations, maybe a way to brighten up a prehistoric home. But that idea doesn't quite hold up when you consider where these masterpieces are found. Our ancestors didn't paint in the easily accessible parts of caves where they lived. Instead, they navigated treacherous, narrow passages, crawling on their hands and knees, sometimes for hundreds of meters into the pitch-black depths. They carried flickering torches or stone lamps filled with animal fat, their only light in a world of absolute darkness. Why go to such extreme lengths? The answer might lie not in what they painted, but in the act of painting itself, and the state of mind it induced. Many researchers now believe that these deep caves were sacred spaces, ancient cathedrals where rituals were performed. The art wasn't just a product, it was part of a process. This idea is often called the shamanistic interpretation. A shaman is a spiritual figure in many cultures, someone who can journey into the spirit world to gain knowledge, heal the sick, or communicate with supernatural forces. These journeys are often achieved through altered states of consciousness, induced by methods like rhythmic drumming, chanting, dancing, sensory deprivation, or even psychoactive plants. Now let's put ourselves back in that cave. You're deep underground. The darkness is total, absolute. It's a powerful form of sensory deprivation. Your sense of space and time begins to dissolve. The only sound is your own breathing, the dripping of water, or maybe the rhythmic chanting or drumming of your companions. The acoustics in these limestone caves are incredible. A single clap can echo and reverberate, creating a disorienting and immersive soundscape. In this environment, the human mind is highly susceptible to suggestion and altered states. The very walls of the cave might seem to breathe or move. Researchers like David Lewis Williams have pointed out that many of the geometric patterns found alongside the animal paintings, the dots, zigzags, and grids are strikingly similar to the entoptic phenomena people see during trance states. These are the visual patterns generated by our own nervous system under certain conditions. It's possible that the shamans would enter a trance, see these geometric shapes, and then project them onto the cave walls. As their trance deepened, these shapes might morph into animals, the powerful beasts they saw as spirit guides or sources of power. The cave wall itself was not just a blank canvas. It was a membrane, a veil between the physical world and the spirit world. The natural bumps and cracks in the rock weren't imperfections to be smoothed over, they were features to be incorporated. A bulge in the rock might suggest the powerful shoulder of a bison. A crack might become the spear piercing its side. The shaman wasn't just painting on the rock. They were drawing the spirits out from within it, making the spiritual world tangible. The act of painting was an act of summoning, of communing with these powerful animal spirits. Think about the animals they chose to depict. Powerful bison, majestic horses, enormous mammoths, and fierce lions. These weren't typically the animals they ate most often. These were the megafauna, the powerful, dangerous, and awe-inspiring creatures of their world. Painting them might have been a way to connect with their strength, to ensure a successful hunt, or to perform rites of passage. The images weren't just pictures of animals. They were embodiments of animal spirits. The darkness played a crucial role. The flickering light from a torch would make the painted animals appear to move, to breathe, to gallop across the stone walls. It would have been a dynamic cinematic experience, completely immersive and psychologically powerful. The artists used the natural contours of the cave to create a sense of three-dimensionality, a prehistoric form of 3D art. They were masters of perspective and form, using sophisticated techniques to create these incredibly lifelike and animated figures. So the art wasn't static. It was an active part of a ritual. Imagine a young hunter being led into the cave's depths for an initiation ceremony. Surrounded by darkness, echoing sounds, and these powerful moving images, they would experience a profound psychological transformation. They would come face to face with the spirit world, guided by the shaman. The art was the catalyst, the focal point for a journey into the hidden mind. This interpretation transforms our understanding of our ancient ancestors. They weren't just primitive hunter-gatherers struggling for survival. They had a rich, complex spiritual life. They explored the depths of their own consciousness with the same courage and ingenuity they used to explore the physical world. These caves were not just art galleries. They were portals. They were places where the veil between worlds was thin, where humans could touch the divine and explore the deepest parts of their own psyche. The art was the key that unlocked the door. When we look at the bison of Altamira or the horses of Lascaux, we are not just seeing ancient paintings. We are witnessing the remnants of a powerful ritual technology designed to alter consciousness and navigate the inner cosmos. It's a testament to the timeless human quest for meaning, our enduring need to connect with something larger than ourselves, and our ability to find the sacred in the deepest, darkest places. The next time you see a picture of cave art, remember the journey. Remember the darkness, the echoes, the flickering light, and the profound human experience that created it. It's a story written in stone, a journey into the hidden mind. Step into a time machine with me, not with gears and flashing lights, but with the quiet dust of millennia. We're traveling way back 40,000 years into the past, deep inside the earth. The air is cool and still. The only sound is the drip of water echoing through vast, dark chambers. Here, in the flickering light of a tallow lamp, our ancestors are doing something extraordinary. They're painting. On the colossal undulating walls of caves, they are bringing a world to life with strokes of red ochre and black manganese. This is the Chauvet Cave in France, a Sistine Chapel of the Stone Age, and what we're looking at isn't just art. It's a language, the very first language that never spoke a word. These aren't just random scribbles. Across continents, from the caves of Lascaux in France to the rock shelters of Sulawesi in Indonesia, a similar story unfolds. Majestic bulls, stampeding horses, graceful deer, and powerful lions all captured in motion. You'll also see geometric signs, dots, lines, and strange symbols, and perhaps most hauntingly, the outlines of human hands. Thousands of them stenciled onto the rock, reaching out to us across an unimaginable gulf of time. It's a silent, visual vocabulary that stretches across 30,000 years, far longer than any written language has existed. This was humanity's first universal form of communication, a shared symbolic world that connected people who would never meet, separated by entire ice ages. But what were they trying to say? This is the great, tantalizing mystery. For centuries, we've been trying to crack the code. Early theories suggested it was simply art for art's sake. Perhaps our ancestors, with newfound leisure time, were just decorating their homes, expressing their aesthetic sense. It's a nice idea, but it doesn't quite fit. These paintings are often found in the deepest, most inaccessible parts of the cave's places that were difficult and dangerous to reach, not comfortable living areas. You'd have to crawl through tight passages and navigate treacherous drops, all in near total darkness. Why go to all that trouble for a little interior design? Another popular theory is hunting magic. The idea is that by painting an animal, the artist gained some kind of mystical power over it. If you depict a bison with a spear in its side, maybe it ensures a successful hunt tomorrow. This theory was compelling for a long time. After all, a successful hunt meant survival. But when archaeologists analyzed the animal bones found in these caves, the remains of the animals people were actually eating, they didn't match the paintings on the walls. In many caves, reindeer was the primary food source, yet horses and bison dominate the art. So if it wasn't a magical menu, what was it? Could it be shamanism? The caves themselves might have been seen as portals to a spirit world. The deep, dark, sound-altering environment could induce altered states of consciousness. Shamans, guided by trances, might have journeyed into these spiritual realms and painted what they saw visions of spirit animals and supernatural forces. The geometric patterns, the dots and zigzags, are very similar to the patterns people see during hallucinatory states. And the way animals are sometimes drawn and merging from cracks in the rock or overlapping each other in a chaotic, dreamlike way certainly lends weight to this idea. The cave wasn't a canvas. It was a membrane between worlds. More recently, researchers have been focusing on the signs themselves. One paleoanthropologist, Genevieve von Petzinger, traveled across Europe and cataloged these abstract marks. She discovered that a mere 32 signs were used repeatedly across the continent for over 30,000 years. 32 signs. That's an incredibly small, stable set of symbols. Is it possible we're looking at the very first steps toward writing? Not a full-blown alphabet, but a proto-writing system. Maybe a dot meant water, a line meant path, and a handprint meant I was here. They weren't writing stories, but they were storing information, communicating complex ideas in an abstract, symbolic way. This was a massive cognitive leap. It was the birth of external data storage. So we have all these theories: art, magic, shamanism, proto-writing, and the truth is, it could be a mix of all of them. Or it could be something we haven't even imagined yet. The reason we can't be sure is that the context is lost forever. The rituals, the songs, the stories that went along with these paintings, they vanished with the last breath of the people who made them. We are like detectives arriving at a crime scene 40,000 years too late, with only the most beautiful and enigmatic clues left behind. The language is there, but we've lost the dictionary. But even without a definitive translation, this ancient art tells us something profound about who we are. It shows us that from the very beginning, modern humans were just like us. We often think of our Stone Age ancestors as primitive, brutish figures concerned only with survival. But these paintings reveal a different story. They reveal minds capable of abstract thought, symbolic representation, and incredible creativity. They were observers of nature with an intimate knowledge of the animals they shared the world with. Look at the detail, the way a horse's head turns, the muscular tension in a bull's shoulder. This isn't just an animal. It's that asterisk animal observed with the eye of a master artist. They were storytellers. A panel in Lascaux appears to show a man seemingly killed by a bison. Is it a record of a tragic event? A cautionary tale? A myth about a hero's death? We don't know the plot, but we can feel the drama. They were creating narratives, trying to make sense of their world, their place in it, and the great forces of life and death. This is a fundamentally human act, and they were community builders. Creating these massive art panels wasn't a solo job. It required a group effort. Some people had to gather the pigments, the ochres and clays, and grind them into powder. Others had to mix them with a binder, like animal fat or plant juice. You needed people to build scaffolding to reach the high ceilings, and others to hold the lamps. It was a shared ritualistic experience that would have bound the community together, reinforcing their culture, their beliefs, and their shared identity. These caves were cathedrals, and this art was their ceremony. Ultimately, what these silent galleries reveal is the enduring, unshakable human need to make a mark, to create meaning. To say, I am here, I see this, I feel this. Remember me. Every handprint pressed against the cold stone is a voice calling out from the deep past. It's the same impulse that drives us today to write a novel, compose a song, or post a photo online. It's the desire to connect, to communicate an idea or a feeling, to transcend our own mortality and leave something behind that will outlast us. When we look at cave art, we're not just looking at old drawings of animals. We are looking in a mirror. We are seeing the dawn of the human spirit, the moment our ancestors stopped just surviving and started asking why. They were grappling with the big questions, just as we do. What is our relationship with nature? What happens after we die? How do we find our place in the cosmos? They didn't have written philosophy or organized religion, but they had the walls of a cave and some ground-up rock. And with those simple tools, they created a legacy of wonder that continues to speak to us today. So the next time you think about language, don't just think about words. Think about the silent, painted language that came first. It reminds us that at our core, we are meaning-making creatures. We are all storytellers, artists, and explorers, trying to paint our own understanding onto the vast, dark walls of the universe. The first language may never have been spoken, but its message echoes loud and clear. We were here, we mattered, and we had something beautiful to share. Thanks for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, give this video a like and subscribe for more adventures into our incredible human story. See you next time.